Netflix has always surprised us with its new series. But undoubtedly, what brings us the most surprises are the tons of strict rules that the poor actors have to follow to impress us. And Wednesday is no exception. So let's look at all those rules that the actors of Wednesday had to submit to, from learning to play the cello to acting by hand. First of all, Netflix didn't want to leave just any director in charge of this very special series. They wanted to achieve something exceptional, something that would be remembered. So for this, they had an experienced man in charge, Tim Burton, who apparently, due to his great experience in Gothic films, can be very strict. The truth is that the actors and the production didn't expect at all the bunch of strict rules that would await them filming with Tim Burton. Let's start with the protagonist Jenna Ortega, who brings to life the iconic Merlina Jenna. She had to bear the burden of performing many activities within the show. First, she had to take several German language classes. This was simply so she could say a few phrases in the series, but perfectly, and boy, German is not at all easy to speak or understand. Enjoy your authentic pilgrim sweet made with cocoa harvested by oppressed indigenous people of the Amazon. We know that for combat and action recordings, most of the time doubles are used to prevent the actors from getting hurt. But this is not a problem for Jenna. The truth is that this was optional, but she decided to do these combat scenes on her own. So she had to learn the basics of combat and martial arts. But this is not new for her, since Jenna has said in several interviews that she loves doing her own stunts, and that she is not afraid of falls at all. She even said that she wouldn't mind if she was asked to drive a car at 200 kilometers per hour. In addition, she spent days and hours learning to play the cello, taking multiple classes a day until she became a distinguished cellist. This girl only needs to learn how to fly. But there is a difficulty to highlight among all the rules that the role entails. This would be to remain more expressionless than usual. Many of us would find this rule quite easy, but when it comes to recording, those moments of distraction or uncontrollable laughter just come. Now, imagine dealing with a character who doesn't have to express any emotion. We know that Merlina is cold, tough, and calculating. Jenna had to restrain herself on many occasions and react as Merlina would, not Jenna. The same actress has said that she is too expressive and cheerful. And why not? In addition to having been a Disney girl, she also has Latin blood. And you know we talk up a storm here. To polish her expressionless face, Jenna drew inspiration from the famous singer Billie Eilish. Because when we see this girl, we can tell that she's not very expressive, to say the least. Most of the time, she has a somewhat serious demeanor. And this served Jenna quite well as a reference, although truthfully, after practicing and trying to always maintain an expressionless face. It must not have been a big challenge for Jenna, as Jenna has commented that she identifies a lot with Merlina and was born to play the character. Another one of the annoying rules that Jenna had to follow to the letter was to improve her posture. She had to practice every day to keep her back straight and not move her hands or arms much if it wasn't necessary. And almost everyone knows that this turns out to be very difficult to keep remembering. The actress comments that this helped her and that thanks to this, her posture has improved greatly. In the first weeks of filming, Jenna commented that she had to do a scene without blinking. Tim Burton simply told her, "I don't want you to blink." She had to learn to manage at what moments to make some strange gestures and besides to make them look natural. To this we add that she had to work on strengthening the power of her gaze to make it look threatening. And for this she took director Stanley Kubrick as a reference. No doubt Jenna had to follow many rules, that's why we prepared a video with other rules, even stricter, that she had to follow. Now let's move on to the next actress, Emma Myers. She had to play Enid, Merlina's roommate, and she is the complete opposite of her. We see it even in the air of her room, creating a great contrast with the protagonist. While we should see Jenna striving to stay cool, Enid should look very colorful. To start, Emma had to fight for months to keep the character, and she succeeded. She was begging and auditioning to be able to stay in Wednesday and to put her to the test. The production left her a very difficult task. They forced Emma to be very involved in the character's costume selection. Tim Burton made the theme of everything we see on screen very clear to her. And after landing the role, she had to plan the character's wardrobe every day, combining various garments and colors together. And being a girl, we would think that she enjoyed this whole process, but the truth is that this turns out to be too stressful. Amy had no knowledge about fashion design for a character. She had to experiment with dozens of outfits until finally she ended up with one similar to what we see in the series. And not end up looking like a colorful piñata. Despite her effort, she had to have a few things fixed, but in the end, Tim Burton was impressed with her choice. What about the actors in general, including the extras? We would have to hope that they don't have any phobias, because if they did, they would have had to endure it throughout the entire shoot. Why, you might be wondering? Imagine having to deal with spiders, monsters, blood, and who knows what else. Working every day with this kind of stuff must be tough. Let's hope Netflix warned about all of this before starting production, and each of the actors we saw on screen are perfectly trained to withstand these fears. I doubt it. At least 2 of the main actors have confessed their fears, and these include several of the ones we just mentioned. And add to it the most terrifying part, a man stuck to a hand, walking around all the time in the corridors. And speaking of that man, what a workload he took on. We're talking about playing the character of Thing, or better known as Fingers. The man responsible for bringing him to life is a man named Victor Dorobantu, better known as Handyman, who is a magician. Yes, he is a magician. And this is his acting debut. You might have thought that Datus's presentation was very simple for Victor Dorobantu to interpret. I mean, it's just having your hand in front of the camera, acting as if it has a life of its own. But in reality, friends, even Datus's job was one of the hardest in the creation of this show. Starting with the makeup. It may sound funny as a joke, but in fact, Victor's hand had to be made up and styled for several hours a day, so that it would be perfect in the recordings. On the top of his hand, they put prosthetics so it would look as if it was really cut. After they needed several photo references so that the makeup would always look the same as it was in other shots. This young man had to face one of the toughest rules of the entire cast. For filming, they would put a full body blue track on him, including his face, and it would take up to 3 hours to put it on. And in addition, add that he had to put his body in very strange positions in order to film. Upside down, on the walls, under the furniture, and sometimes even inside the walls themselves. Sometimes they would make a hole for him to stay there and breathe, as this suit caused him a lot of heat. And if you thought poor Jenna had the biggest challenge, you were completely wrong. Victor Dorobantu was the one who truly suffered here. As if it wasn't enough, doing all those uncomfortable positions to record Tim Burton made his job even more complicated, this by adding underwater scenes. Imagine doing these poses, but now underwater and also holding your breath. But despite this sounding quite tedious, the truly difficult thing that Victor had to face was giving personality to Dados, as this character was created from scratch. The personality of this hand came to life through gestures, its own language, and even Morse code. And finally, a strict rule that Zeta Jones had to follow was to arrange her time to be able to star as Morticia. In case you didn't know, this woman is a super billionaire, owner of several businesses around the world. She is usually very busy with all she has to do, which is why she was the highest paid of the entire cast. As soon as she finished her recordings, she immediately went to work on something else, day and night, without rest. Being successful in life sure does take a lot of work. But well, friends, these were the strictest rules of the Wednesday cast. Do you guys know of any others? Leave your answers in the